It's an experiment, that was conducted in Ukraine as well as Europe, because all of the media is controlled by the globalists. If you push one agenda everywhere, people start believing it. It's just the nature of a human being. Like overall, if you think about happy people, would happy people ever say, "Yeah, let the war go"? What is country? What is country for you?
People only. Community.
Yeah, understand, but you guys lost
Constituents.
generations ahead. From what I read, there's like over 1 million people that have died in just Ukrainians. I think it's irreversible. If you ask the question, hey, is there a God? And they know the answer, I would rather not know it. I would rather live with what I believe in love and peace, than knowing that there's no God. So what's the whole idea of loving and taking care of other people and helping other people, right?
Before we start, I would like to clear a few things up. I was born in a country that no longer exists, USSR, and I hate the communist regime, since it brought almost nothing but horror to my country, Lithuania. But it doesn't mean that I hate people that lived in that country. Honestly, I have zero problem with all the people in the world. I love Ukrainians, Russians, Americans, Lithuanians, Latvians, Israelis, Palestinians, Iranians, French, German, Brits, you name it. I have zero problem with the people of the world. But that doesn't make me pro-Ukraine or pro-Russia. I am only pro-America. Why? Because I live and raise my children here. I love this country with all my heart. With that being said, let's get back to the podcast with the one and only Mike Dolgin. All right, so let me properly introduce you. So Mike Dolgin is an independent filmmaker that was born and raised in Soviet Ukraine and migrated to the United States with his brother in 2006. He started working in construction sites, but for the last decade became a prominent filmmaker working with BenQ, Hyundai, A24 and others. Mike, whose real name is Mikhailo, had a tough childhood and a turbulent time, though he managed to seek his dream, whatever it takes. Mr. Dolgin is a husband, a father of two, and a man of God. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
So, Mike, obviously we speak the same language, both of us, and my mom is Ukrainian, so I've been to Ukraine, I want to say let's say 10 times. So my relatives lives in Lviv, which is the western part of Ukraine, which are very pro-Ukraine, I want to say, and another part of my relatives live in eastern part, so in Donetsk, which is, I want to say, more pro-Russian, right, especially now. In the last 3.5 years, the US and the citizen of the US sent more than $100 billion to the Ukraine with the aid, right? But I believe they have no idea what this country is all about. So I would like to start with you about the whole country, and especially about your childhood. Because Americans that live here, let's say you're a child of the 90s, right? Your childhood was in the 90s.
87th, yeah.
So when people hear American children were watching, let's say, NBA, right? They wanted to become like Michael Jordan, I want to say, and watching the Space Jam, all the other cartoons, they were going to the cinema theaters, and etc. At the same time, life in Ukraine was a little bit different, right?
Yeah, obviously. Yeah.
Tell me about your childhood. So you grew up in a pretty small town called Zhytomyr, which is right next to Kiev. It's a little bit more western.
Yeah, about an hour and a half away.
Okay. If you can, a little bit closer to the mic.
Yeah,
you can.
Sure. I tell my kids, and I tell everyone that that I talk to about the childhood. I think we had probably one of the best periods of times in terms of the childhood. We didn't have tablets, we didn't have computers, all we had is the street.
And the ball.
Our friends and the ball, yeah. The amount of games that we played, is insane. There was so much more pure connection between people. Obviously the street also would make you tough as well, in that regard. So I think the qualities that my childhood gave me a little bit different than what people live through now and our kids. I don't think they'll be the same as us. Maybe let's put it this way: as tough, as creative, as feeling. So I always tell my wife that I wish that our kids lived our childhood because it was so much more interesting.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Was there any crime back then?
I mean, the crime has always existed, but as kids, I don't think it was, and my family, and my family is like a hardworking class people, so it never thanks to God, never touched us. Our parents, the way we grew up, our parents, like our family was so close. We had such a loving relationships with, I lived with my grandma in the same house. So my mom's mom. So we were always surrounded by the family, by the love. And I think our parents raised us in a way where there's nothing else matter in the world but the family, and love between each other. And obviously, our dad, we started wrestling at a very early age. I think I was like 24 kilos when I started wrestling.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, with my brother too. So
5 to 6 years old.
I was about close to 5 years old, when I started wrestling.
But wrestling is not big in Ukraine, right?
Yeah,
Boxing is.
It is not. It is not. Well, I mean, comparing to United States, probably not as big because the amount of money that are being dumped into the sports is very different. The whole system is very different. But our dad, would take us to the workouts every day and would sit with us through the workout. So as I said, the childhood was different because the values were different back then overall. And I think we got really lucky with parents. We got really loving parents. They love each other, and I think and we soaked it in, the love, and then that's the exact same way I treat my wife now.
So would you say your family was middle class or lower class?
I'd say lower class, but with the time they managed to get to more very closer to the middle class.
Okay.
And that was when we were ready to get out of home and travel to America for for a better life. Yes.
So you came here in 2006 to study, right?
Yeah.
How did you end up getting into the US?
So my brother traveled here for work and travel.
Okay.
But he always had a dream to visit the United States.
Okay, so before that, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Explain to the audience, especially to the American ones, that what kind of an influence does the UF have over, let's say, post-Soviet countries?
Yeah, and again, it's not the same United States as it used to be, and I think it's really important to bring it up because what we've seen in the movies when I was a child, right? The image that America had was very different from what America is now.
You mean the masculine?
Yeah, there used to be like an American dream, the values. Yes, there was a lot less left agenda, like a globalist agenda. And so like everyone wanted to travel. I personally, I did not want to go because I just met my wife back then in 2016. 2006, sorry. I just met my wife, and I was so in love, and I didn't want to travel here. But anyways, like coming back to, my brother came here for work and travel, and then my dad asked me, said, "Hey, listen, son, like you've been with us, you lived with us, we took care of you in anything you can think of. Like even like we go to the doctor, my parents would. It's just again the system is very different. My parents would go to me with the doctors, or they'll call and schedule appointments for me and stuff like that. It's just, I think it's about time for you to become a man, right? And I wanted to ask you, if you say no, I'm totally fine with it. But you need to learn how to swim on your own. You need to go and learn how to take care of yourself, how to take care of your family. This is an opportunity of a lifetime for you. If you go, if it doesn't work out, you always have a place to come back to. And I don't know, he influenced me. I didn't want to go because by my nature, I'm a little bit softer guy than my brother. My brother he's a lot stronger as a human being, in terms
You mean physically or mentally?
Mentally, I'd say, yeah. He's very different from me, like to have two very different personalities. And somehow we decided that I'll go. So I left.
You came here to study?
Yeah, I came here to study. So both of us wrestled, right? And my brother came here first. He found a university that had a pretty good wrestling team.
Oh.
In St. Charles, Missouri. It's by St. Louis.
Not the best place in.
Yeah, I mean, it has its beauty too. America is that's the beauty of the America because it has everything in it. And looking back now, as I said, it has its beauty. It's very different America from what you see here.
I want to say St. Louis is the most crime-driven city in the whole country.
Yeah, it's been, yeah. But you also have to consider the population. It's because it's based on the population. It's not based on the amount of crimes that are committed, right?
Yes, percentage-wise.
Yeah, yeah. You know, and so I got a scholarship. My brother got me into university. I got a scholarship for wrestling, and so he went and did the same school after that. And this is how we came here. You know, I got my F1 visa, the student visa, and so I wrestled for the first 3 years for school. Back home, I wrestled Greco-Roman style, and here I had to learn the college style is very different. But it has been pretty good experience overall. You know.
Greco-Roman is only torso, right?
Yeah.
You're not allowed to touch
legs,
the legs.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So the whole experience of being here for the first almost 6 years, because I got my bachelor and my master's degree at that university.
What did you study?
Business administration for my bachelor and master's in marketing.
Oh, really? So you got masters, bro?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
A guy from freaking, I won't say in a good way, from a shithole in Ukraine, right?
Yeah.
Not a big town.
Yeah.
You got into the US and you have masters.
Yeah, thanks to my parents again. If it wasn't my dad, I probably would not be here.
Were you a good student back there, back then in the
Yeah, we were 100% going back home after I get education here. That means that I can get pretty much any job I want in Ukraine with my education. So the plan was to go back home. You know, but I think, as I said, America shapes you, and these 6 years in the school kind of changed everything in me, and I pretty much built myself
from the ground up.
From the ground up, yeah. In terms of my personality and who I am. Well, I had my wife here too with me, so that's a big one. If I didn't have her next to me, I'm not sure where I would end up, because she's a big part of. She's a big part of me. I can say, like, big part of my life. She is a big part of who I am, because if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be who I am.
You see, so in the last, almost 2 weeks, we see those protests in the U.S., especially in the L.A. area, and I've seen these photos with the Soviet Union flags, and I was like, people waving those flags, they have no idea what it's like. What do you think is the legacy of the Soviet Union, according to the guy that was born and raised in Ukraine? Do you still feel it when you talk to your relatives in Ukraine? Because it was like 30 years ago, 30, 40 years ago since USSR collapsed.
Mm-hmm. And that's a good question, because I have my take on it as well. A lot of people might not like it, but just judging based on my parents, right? Again, coming back to my parents, and then I'll get to me.
They still live there, right?
Yeah, they still live in Ukraine. I think the qualities that the Soviet Union had on people, right? The quality of people.
I mean, the values.
The values and the quality of the person itself. Yeah, the values were. I think they were so right for the human being. You know, there's a political agenda. Yes, that's one thing. But overall, when I look at the people of that age, of that time frame, I think they're a lot more educated. People used to read a lot more. There was a different communication. The culture was different. The art was different. That influenced, I think, my parents, our parents, and us in a way where it's very different now. It's like a completely opposite now.
There was a reading cult back then in USSR. Like 99%, I want to say people read, right?
Yeah.
All of us had those libraries.
Yeah.
Maybe the books wasn't. Yeah, but they had a lot of books.
Yeah,
especially the classics.
And a lot of classic. Yeah. Not only like Russian, but European. European and American. So, I think it gave me a good foundation of what a human being should be like, right? And what I consider myself as, there's some flaws in me as well. Everyone is different, but I think we are really respectful in a way towards other people, right? We don't, in terms of privacy, in terms of treating women, I think this is big too, especially being in America.
And you knew what a woman is.
Yeah.
People nowadays don't know.
Yeah. So towards our kids, the values that we're trying to put in our kids now. I think the kindness is big too, because the sympathy is big too. I think people back home used to be a lot more sympathetic, a lot more loving, a lot more kind, a lot more respectful, and a lot more friendly than now. So putting aside the political side of, Soviet Union, I think that people from that era would have an advantages now in the world we live in now, because there's a lot less, what I just said, there's a lot less of everything.
So the town that you grew up in was poor, would you say so?
This is, in my opinion, you can't say poor, because the meaning of poor can be very...
Let's say infrastructure, for instance, the roads, the children playgrounds.
Yeah, I can't say that it was like really bad, I couldn't tell the difference back then when I grew up there, so I didn't know what poor is. I would say right now I would say, yeah, it was the level of the infrastructure was a lot more... a lot worse than what people have here, but it has its own also ties to it. It didn't just happen because that's the country we lived in. Before the Cold War, the Soviet Union was an engine in the world. It used to be like a leader, like in America now.
Correct.
Right. So after America did its job, everything went down in our country, everything, and plus the recovery after the World War II, like we took the biggest hit, Ukraine, Russia, Belarus, the whole infrastructure was demolished. So everything had to be rebuilt. And it had to be rebuilt really fast. And it was rebuilt really fast. Right. So it has its Soviet look. And I think this is the reason, like, why we look at it, that it's a little bit, right? And in America and Europe, everything is beautiful, the historic buildings and everything. So that's poor, maybe, yes, but did I think of it as poor? Probably not. And I still don't think that we grew up in a poor environment, and we grew up where we had to grow up,
So you came here into the US almost 20 years ago.
Yeah.
Tell me about the difference that you see right now. US 20 years ago, during the Bush era, and now. Has it changed a lot?
It's very different. So, as you get older, I mean, it's the evolution of everything. It's the evolution of technology and evolution probably of a human minds. When I was in college, I did not really care about who is the president. All I cared about how to pay for the next semester. So I was deep into learning, deep into working and trying to, collect money for my next semester. And I was deep into wrestling. So what I can tell is that with the technological advancement and evolution, everything has changed, and now everyone is a politician, now everyone is a life coach, now everyone is an expert on everything on social media. So, and you get people are more engaged with the social media. People are more engaged into politics and everything. Back then, I could tell the difference in the values that were pushed. There was no, I hate to say it because it's a very controversial subject, with all gay people, LGBTQ, because I do have friends, gay people and transgender people that I worked with, and they're amazing people. But I think the political side is trying to use it to divide people, right? They create these controversies and specifically do that to divide people.
Would you say people were more kind back then, like 20 years ago?
Well, with the whole, and again, it's like we're just culturally very different, so I can't say that Americans are very kind and responsive. There are some good people, but overall culture, everyone minds their own business here.
You know what I mean? So, for instance, right now, if I have this MAGA hat right here and go into LA, I'm not gonna get knocked out or knocked down minimum, right?
You'll probably be
words wise, yeah, or physically wise. So 20 years ago, I don't think that Americans would fight me because of a hat I wear. So people right now are very divided, and just because of the, let's say, one man or one ideology.
But what I told you, I think before we started this, that the ideology of this country is divide and conquer. So I think this is exactly what's happening inside the country. And I feel bad, everyone is entitled for their opinion, on whatever subject this is, if you know how to respect it and understand the person, it can be very different from you, but like, what does it have to do with you, like with your opinion, and I see a lot of it when friends fighting over politics and, over certain things. But I always say, like, if you're not aligned on the subject, you just should respect, like, think about it. And okay, he has his own opinion. I love him not for his opinion, but for who the guy is.
Correct.
Right. And I think this is the way people should approach things. There are people, and again, it's like people are brainwashed, on both sides. There's no right side. For me, there's no right side.
Yeah, agree.
For me, the right side is loving and helping others. That's the right side for me. But I always, I mean, it's not a secret that people are brainwashed on both sides. I feel like with MAGA movement, I mean, it's like becoming like a cult. I see people like doing logos with Trump's face and incorporating his like face into their company logos. And
oh, really? Never seen that.
Yeah, I've seen a truck driving. Just was coming back from Big Sur 2 days ago, and it's like that's people taking it to the next level. And overall, like, I've seen some guys like praising him like he's a god, like he's gonna change everything. I think, coming back to the brainwashing, so I think people invest too much time into politics and social media overall, that they cannot see that it influences them big time. Instead of being connected to your friends and being invested into your kids' life, and spending time with your kids and maybe reading more.
Bro, they're not having kids. It's like there are a lot of 30 to 40-year-olds that are childless, women and men.
Well, yeah, that's again back. If you look back into America 25 years ago, 30 years ago, there was not a thing. But I think that's there's another group of people, and that could be, people can call it a theory. The globalists. Now what we have in the United States is we have a nationalist in power. But before, we had people that were leaning towards globalist agenda of a one world, and I think this is the agenda of the globalists, of not having kids and having so many different genders, and creating these what do you call the cities, the smart cities or whatever they call them, that they want to build. That you shouldn't
15 minutes.
Yeah. You shouldn't have anything and be happy with anything. You don't have to have a car. So I think there is a plan probably in place for that from the globalists. But I hope it never happens. I hope we can go back to how we lived before without social media. Technologies are good, in medicine and stuff, but that.
You see, so the interesting thing is, I remember myself being, let's say, 10 to 12 years old, right? And I remember myself going outside till 11 to 12 p.m., right? And my parents were like never concerned where I am. We never knew even a word, a pedophile, right?
Yeah.
Right now, I would never let my kid go outside on his own until he's like 14, maybe years old, right? And I've have multiple conversations with Americans, and they say the same thing. They're now 40 years old, for instance, and they were playing outside on their own as well when they were kids, but now they don't let their kids out at all. So something has changed, I want to say, in the last 15 to 20 years, that we're basically just afraid to let our kids go and play outside. That is one of the most, I want to say, one of the most important things, you being as a parent, just to feel safe and to make sure that your child is safe at school or at the playground or just outside playing by the pool or in the backyard. So something has definitely changed. So getting back to your the whole journey of US, so you end up in St. Louis, Missouri, then you went to Chicago.
Yeah.
Why Chicago?
The biggest Ukrainian community European, I'd say European Union is Lithuanians,
Yeah.
Polish people, Ukrainians, Russians, very international. And it was the closest city to St. Louis. It was like 350 miles, I think. Major city, you know.
Is
and
it tough?
Yeah, I can't say. I mean, big city, you know, very different. But at the same time, you have Ukrainian stores, you have Ukrainian churches, you have what do you call them? Ukrainian pharmacies, Ukrainian doctors. So you almost feel like you're almost back home. You know, it's just a different infrastructure. But and plus, we had people that we knew from back home. I had a friend from the same city who lived in Chicago. She kind of helped us. She helped us a little bit at the beginning to get our own apartments and stuff like that. Because we lived in her place for a little bit, and then until we get our own apartments.
So you've mentioned religion. So how different is Ukrainian Christianity to American Christianity? Would you say Americans are more religious or Ukrainians?
Not at all.
Really?
But yeah, if the times have changed, you know, I was brought to church by my grandmother when I was 3.
Orthodox, right?
Yeah, and we would go to church every Sunday, and is there a little bit different? Church is a little bit different, right? Feels a little bit different.
A little bit.
You're not going into an office building, or something that looks like an office building. You know, the churches have a church look. But so the family is really religious. My family is really religious from my mom's side and my dad's side as well.
Have you ever read Bible?
Yeah, for my grandmother and my grandfather.
During the family time, did you read Bible?
Yeah.
Oh, really? Okay. Because, for instance, Lithuania is very Catholic, right? I want to say like 90% of people are Catholic. But I believe only like 20% maybe of them read the Bible because maybe they go to church, but they have no idea what's written in the Bible. They're like, nominally, they're Christian, but spiritually, no.
Yeah, and it's all thanks to the family again, you know, my grandmother. Because when they were getting old, they would ask me to read a Bible for them. They would sit down. I remember as now, you know, they would sit down next to me and I would read them a Bible, you know, for 20, 30 minutes a day in the evening, usually before we go to sleep. Because they had problems with vision, you know, as getting old. So that was beautiful. And the churches, coming back to that, it's just I didn't answer, I think, fully. The churches are different, big time. Spiritually, visually, and you know, it's interesting that how it left how it left something in me wherever I go now for traveling, right? One of my favorite places to go is to go different churches and see, because there's a feeling that I get inside of peace, right? So when we travel to Italy, like I would ask my wife to stop almost at every church. Just the way they look, the way they feel inside. So.
And you're not seeking for specifically Orthodox. You're just Protestant. You don't care.
Yeah,
the church is
so a big part of my life I also spent at the Catholic churches, because my brother went from Orthodox church to Catholic church. I also had friends that went to American church, Baptist church, which was held at like the theater room. So we've been like I've experienced a little bit of everything, right? But I never went to church for the church. I went to church seeking for peace and the feeling that I get in the church, and I always feel intimacy in the church where I can speak to God without distractions, without thinking of anything, you know. So to me, it don't make a big difference. Is it an Orthodox church or we call them Kostiol, or it's a Catholic church. Yeah. I can't say the same about the Baptist churches. They're good for human. Any church, I'd say good for human soul.
It depends on a pastor or a priest.
Yeah. What they preach, I guess. But every church has to preach love and God. So
we've heard those stories that in Ukraine they try to dismantle the Orthodox church.
Yeah, it can hide from it. It's the truth.
What do they do specifically?
Well, as I said, I've never tried to politicize anything, but
most of Ukraine is Orthodox, right?
Yeah, yeah.
not Catholic. Maybe the Western part.
There's like a Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine, and there was the Ukrainian Orthodox Church which was a lot smaller. And
What's the difference? Just the main guy who controls.
who controls the hierarchy or whatever it's called. I'm not too educated on that subject, but somehow they say that they manipulate people through church, even though like from my old childhood I went to church, there was not a single word about Russia, Ukraine, political choices, which party to vote for, which president to vote for. So, but at the same time, maybe because the churches that you own, maybe because in Kiev we have Lavra, Pечерska Lavra.
No, what is that?
It's like a central a headquarters sort of a Russian Orthodox Church in Ukraine, but it's a very huge historical site in the center of Ukraine, with an undergrounds, and I mean it's an experience of its own that you have to go to and see for yourself. But it used to be controlled, they say, by the Russian main priest, right? And so they always try to politicize everything. So
yeah, but at the same time, you can see that footage when the Russian, how is it called, the patriarch, he's blessing I want to say the guns or the rockets that were flying into the Ukraine. So I would like to get rid of this kind of denomination as well.
Yeah, that's a little bit stupid. Yeah, I would say
big time.
But it's on both sides,
So I've been to Ukraine, just as I mentioned, like 10 times. And I've been to Lviv, which is Lvov, that's the western part and the eastern part. And since I only speak Russian, I don't speak Ukrainian. I have always spoken Russian in those cities, but that was like 20 years ago, right? I had never ever had this strange look or something, or even my relatives from the West Ukraine that they were saying like, no, I'm not going to talk to you in Russian, etc. At the same time, we're hearing those stories, especially the Americans hear those stories that Ukrainians tried to ban the Russian language in the Ukraine. Was it true at all? Since you left Ukraine 20 years ago, but your parents still live there.
Yeah. I not really. We went to Russian school when we were kids, which later converted into Ukrainian school, but we still had a Russian language. I don't see why we're having these debates in Ukraine for language, because if you look at other countries, there are countries that have 3 languages, national languages. There, in America we have Spanish and we have English. In Switzerland, I believe you have Italian, German, French. Yeah, so it's like, the more languages you know, the better for you. You have advantage over other people. Back then, I did not see like. When I traveled to Lviv for wrestling competitions in Ukraine, then certain people wouldn't talk to you if you speak Russian to them. Yeah, they like act like they don't understand you. But again, it's they have their own views on life. I salute them. I speak both languages fluently. I write poems in Ukrainian. I can write poems in Russian. I can write poems in English, and I speak Polish as well. So I can write Polish, but I can read Polish, but I can speak Polish because I lived for too long with Polish people, and I went to school with Polish people, so I've learned how to speak. That's my advantage. So
so I was born in '88, so I'm a Soviet Union child as well. So I would say, since I was born and lived my whole life in Lithuania, so I speak Russian, I speak a little bit Polish, Lithuanian, obviously. So I would say almost all former Soviet Union countries are quote unquote my people, right? I can find a common language with Russians, Ukrainians, Georgians, Armenians, Latvians, Lithuanians, 100%. Polish, and etc. But now it's like Polish, they hate Russians, Ukrainians hate Russians, Russians hate Ukrainians. The divisiveness of those countries is huge, and it's never been like this before at all. It's like almost at the same time, I would say, like Americans would hate Canadians and Canadians would hate Americans just because of some kind of a conflict that they had 20 years ago or 30 years ago.
But people shouldn't be politicizing everything, because if you ask, just stop somebody on the street and ask, hey, like, what do you think about it? And people will say, yeah, we're brothers. We were brothers. We were always brothers, and we feel bad that it's happening. But how can you stop it? There's nothing that you can do. There's nothing that I can do. All I can do is be kind to, my fellow Russians, my fellow Ukrainians, my fellow Polish people. That's the only difference that you can make, is be a better human being, and don't get caught into this nationalist agenda, political agenda, because people up top don't really care about people on the bottom. And I feel really bad for everyone, because it's, as I said, like my childhood, we traveled to Russia a lot to see my grandparents. It was beautiful. We almost have the same culture, we have the same values, we have the same traditions, we have the same art, we have the same anything. I mean, it's like I can't really say that we were much different. We were always similar in everything, right? And even like with Georgian people, I always feel like there are people, they're like,
Yes.
we're
Yeah.
same with Lithuanian people. I went to school here with, I think I told you, with Lithuanian people, and we always were great, always were great.
Same mentality.
Like, yeah, it feels like it's, it's our people,
Correct.
because people from Europe can probably say the same, where people from Spain and France and Germany, they kind of feel the same. So the same with us.
I don't think so. I believe they don't share a lot of culture just like we did, or like we do still. For instance, when I came here to the US and we went to Glendale, it's like a lot of Armenians, right? And I was like, oh,
Yeah.
my people. And they're like, no. Those Armenians were here like 100 years ago, so they don't speak Russian.
Not
And
your people.
they're more American. I was, oh, I got it. Speaking of sports and Ukraine, explain to the entire world why Ukrainian boxing is so good. It's like it's not even about the Klitschko brothers, right? Okay, maybe two brothers, right? Like 20 to 30 years ago, started their careers, one of the greatest of all times. But then you got others, right? You got Lomachenko, which just ended his career, and you got, of course, obviously Usyk, right? You got Gvozdyk. Why?
I don't know. I think it's the heritage of the Soviet Union.
But the Russians don't have that money. They don't have that many boxers.
And it's also, if you look at the generation, that there's a certain group of people that came out of Ukraine, and they all used to be in the same team, right? Usyk and Gvozdyk and Lomachenko, they're coming from the same team, the national team. So I think it's just a generational thing. I don't think, if you look at Cubans are pretty good boxers too.
Yes, and wrestlers too.
Yeah, and wrestlers as well. Yeah, there's a lot of talent here too. But not the same,
Would you say that? So in Cuba, they say the only choice for you to get rid of the poverty, right, is to go into sports and achieve something in sports. Would you say some kind of the same thing in Ukraine?
I no, I can't say that. I can say there's just, I trained with people, Olympians, and with very successful sportsmen, wrestlers especially. And I can't say that they did it to get famous or to get rich. I think they did it because of how much they loved the sport. And this is what makes a big difference, I think, too, in Ukrainian boxers and people up here. Here you're offered all the luxuries, physical therapies and, all kinds of strength conditioning coaches, and then technique coaches, and then, you go to this training facility, then you go to this training facility. But in Ukraine, you're giving what you're given, So it could be a little gym or a homemade gym, just like Lomachenko. His dad built a gym at like very small facilities somewhere next to their house, and there's so many people that went through that facility. So many good kids went through that facility. So I think if you're given more, you're gonna have a bigger hunger. And I think that's like with people from Ukraine, Russia, from coming to America and becoming successful in a short period of time. I think this is the mentality that we carry with us, of being hungry. We're always hungry for everything, for more.
Correct.
Get better, get more, get better, get more, get better. Just coming back to my story here. We came with nothing. My parents gave me $5,000 for the first semester, to pay for the first semester for school.
And that's it.
Because my scholarship was not like fully covered. I had it partially covered, and my living at the university was paid by the school, but I still had to pay $5,000 a semester, 5, 6. So like I knew that in order for me to stay here, I need to roll up my sleeves and get going. And because as soon as I would achieve something, I was, hey, I can do more, because that wasn't that hard, you know. So I think living with very limited resources in Ukraine gives you an ability to achieve things here a lot more easier, because like you go through pain and to go to difficulty situations a lot more easier, because you know the character that you build back home uh, is different. And that's the accessibility here, like you have everything here. If you can't do it on your own, your country will help you, you know.
You mean sports-wise?
Even sports wise, yeah, even sports wise.
If you show the results, yeah. I want to say a lot of is covered.
Yeah, and it's changing too now. You know, everything is becoming all about money here. Like I take my kids to the sports schools now here, gymnastics. Uh, you know, the coaches are not as involved into a personal development of a child, and there are more gifted kids, but at the same time, you know, if you work hard with the different kids, they'll catch up faster. But it's designed in a way you can advance pretty fast and go to the next level, right? Compete with or train with the older kids. So when I was back home wrestling, my dad would always push me and say, "Hey, you need to wrestle heavier guys, because
Yeah.
that's how you learn, that's how you get strength."
Correct.
And over here, like I take my daughter and say, "Hey, can we take her to the next one so she can look at these older kids and try to catch up?"
Yeah.
So I'm trying to develop that hunger in my kid as well, right? Where she doesn't like in a limp mode with these other kids, you know, with the smaller kids, trying to learn, you know, a flip for a year or a year and a half, because I can do it myself at home if I really want to. I can
Correct.
teach my kid to do a flip in a month, you know. So I think it's all about money here now. We're like, okay, you have to pay for the whole year for your kid to be in this group. Then she becomes 7, she turns 7, she can advance to an older group. So it's not about the results, it's about,
It's not the results-based, not merit-based, but just like a subscription.
it's a it's a financial gain. I understand that they have to, you know, maintain the school and everything, but it's not always good for kids, you know.
Explain to me this thing. So we've got this amazing boxer in Lithuania. His name is Eimantas Stanionis, right? He just lost for the WBA world title, but he was undefeated. I want to say 16-0, right? But he's super humble. Every time I see Lomachenko and Usyk, they're super humble.
Yeah.
Klitschko were maybe not that humble as Lomachenko is. So would you say if Loma would live here, if he lived here, and he had this a little bit different mentality, do you think he would have achieved more?
No. It's all thanks to his dad again, and the values that his dad has, the values that his dad engraved into his persona, his personality. If it wasn't for his dad, just like if it wasn't for my dad, I wouldn't be where I'm at today. So if you look, I'm not sure if you researched a lot on him, but if you look at his story, you know, it's a beautiful, like somebody has to make a movie about it, about his relationship with his dad. Because his the way his dad thought through everything, the way how he approached it, you know, how he put him into dance school first before he started boxing to kind of give him strength on his feet, so he learns how to move, you know, in the ring. And then he put him into wrestling. He wrestled as well, and then he took him to boxing. And then he started coaching him boxing on his own way. So if he was here, he could have been an average guy as well. But if it wasn't for his dad, I don't. And overall, I think Lomachenko, because I know people that know him and know his family, right? He's not only a good boxer; he is an amazing human.
Correct.
So,
What I've heard is
that's the culture again. That's the cultural influence and his parent influence. That's what really made him. You know, obviously he put in work, but his dad taught him how to work hard.
But I believe he's so underappreciated in the entire world.
Yeah, because
if people knew how good he really was, let's say 5 to 8 years ago, he was amazing.
Yeah, I think he's a pure role model for a lot, you know. But this is the world we live in now, where Jake Paul gets a lot more light than Lomachenko. But again, it just shows you.
But Well, Jake Paul became more humble, I want to say, in the recent years.
I wouldn't say that. If you're humble enough, you don't talk crap, about.
That's how you sell.
And then you fight. But that's what I'm saying. Lomachenko sells with his technique. But it seems like people are not interested in techniques today, but they're more interested into who said what, who called who what, So it's unfortunate, and I hope it changes. But if I I have a son. When he gets to the point where he understands what's up, I'll definitely show him Lomachenko and his story and put him as an example for my kid.
Would you say Jake Paul is a boxer?
Not really. If he's a boxer, he would fight boxers. He fights
Well, he fought Tommy Fury.
Tommy Fury.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't really say that Tommy Fury is a pro too himself. If he fought somebody from the top dogs, it would be a different outcome.
Maybe he will. He's young. I'll say he's 28.
Well, he will never become a. He doesn't have what it takes.
Yeah, but he knows how to box.
I mean, he learned how to throw punches. That's yes, but he doesn't have a dog in him. When there's a dog fight, when you fight, and plus technique as well. He doesn't have a technique. His feet. In my opinion, again, I'm not saying for everyone. But in my opinion, again, my dad is a boxer too. He fought. He used to be in pros in Soviet Union.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Pro.
So why we learn, I know how to box. I know how to throw the punch from early age because my dad taught me how to. And so we always followed UFC. The day it was started, my dad would bring home HVC cassettes and we would watch the fights, So we started watching fighting from the very early age. So I can tell the difference. Then we wrestled, I can tell the difference when I see somebody fighting, his feet are really, this is just not there. It's not a boxing feat, He, as I said, he learned how to look like a boxer when he works the pads. Yeah. Anyone can do it, but I don't think he has it in him, because if he really had, a boxer in him, he would go for the Golden Glove. Why do you want to sell these stupid fights with washed out old men or people that are not pro? I have nothing against Tommy Fury or anything like that, but I think why don't you if you call yourself a boxer, you have to live a boxer's life. Right, you start from local championships, and then you go for the gold.
Yeah, but he started when he was 20.
For the Golden Glove. It don't matter. And the only reason why he became something because he was pretty big on social media. That's the only reason, and it seems like everything works this way now. If you're an actor, if you're a YouTuber, influencers, you have a better chance than the person with a real talent. And I'll tell you that much. If you go into a Mexican gym somewhere in the outskirts of LA, there's a guy who'll wipe the floor with Jake Paul, And I'm pretty sure there's in every gym there is a guy who'll wipe the floor with Jake Paul. And again, this is just strictly my opinion,
Do you think Usyk is underappreciated as well?
Yeah, and it all comes down to culture. The way we don't talk much,
Well, at least he dances.
We show things that we do good, and I think this is the exact reason why they're not as superstars, because if you look at Conor McGregor, the guy could fight. He could fight. Yeah, he could fight. He doesn't fight anymore, but when he had that hunger in him, but as soon as he got everything, he became a very different man, But on the top of ability of fighting, he's also a really good. He has really strong charisma. He's a character. He can talk. And that's some people have it, some people don't.
Well, Usyk has his character as well, but he doesn't speak English that good.
But he comes off as a funny man. Less. He does, and that's something again. He does. We don't offend people in a way to jack up the fight. There's a level of respect, especially in boxing. There's many instances where people have died from the injuries that they received during the match. So you always have to have it in consideration that you either go into the ring with the guy that, you potentially may kill or you be killed, So I think there should be a level of respect. And the sportsmanship is one of the most important ones as well, and that's how we are raised back home. Yeah. People over here, there's some pretty big sports people up here as well, but it became a part of the business, and just Usyk and Lomachenko and Gvozdyk, they choose not to participate, and I have my respect to them for that.
Well, I'm a big fan of UFC. I want to say in UFC, let's say 50% of the fighters, they don't talk trash at all. They're very respectful. Even those who talk trash, after the fight, they hug each other.
Yeah.
That's what I like about the UFC.
Yeah, but again, it seems like people don't buy fights to nowadays. In my opinion, people don't buy fights to see the sweet science of fighting, right? And technique and the heart and the will to win. People buy fights because they chose one side who talks shit, or maybe another side who doesn't talk shit, and they watch the fight just to see their guy win. Not enjoy the fight, but to see their guy win, and then so their ego's like, oh yeah, it's my guy won. That's just my opinion.
At the same time, bro, let's say we had like a decade ago, Fedor, right? Emelianenko.
Yeah.
Never talked trash.
That's
But he was famous in the entire world.
He became famous in Japan more than America, and then unfortunately, but it was the style of fighting that he had that made him famous. It wasn't because he's a phenomena. I think it was because how ruthless he was. It was really entertaining to watch in terms of the fighting, because the fights were like a brawl, and I think it appeals a lot more to the general public too. And Japan made him big, but then when it came to coming to the United States, he didn't really like. I would say his coach ruined his career. Not coach, but his manager ruined his career.
Correct.
He could have been a big guy here too.
I believe he was overvalued. I would say he shouldn't fight as a heavyweight in the UFC, because I believe Velasquez, for instance, would wipe his ass. He was not that big. He was, I want to say, sloppy and fat, right? He could easily make 93, I want to say 205, right, pounds. So he could easily fight the guys like John Jones. And even John Jones would be too big for him, because Fedor is not tall. I want to say 6 feet only. John Jones is 6'3", 6'4".
But you also have to think about the age. When Fedor started fighting when all these guys were kids.
Correct.
So by the time he made it to America, he was washed out, and
There is something.
that's the age is everything in the sport. It's not soccer or where people can play up to 40 years old. I think when you started fighting since you were 16 or 17 and you fought for 20 years, have you done sports yourself?
No, I just lift weights.
So
Box from time to time.
if you think about weight cuts, right? Because I did cut weights here, 25 pounds in a week.
Oh, wow. From what weight?
For wrestling,
But what you were weighing? What, 200?
185, 190, and I had to cut to 165.
Okay. Percentage-wise, that's a lot.
So if you think what goes into a weight cut itself, besides getting ready for the tournament, right? The weight cut itself
Drains out of you?
Yeah, it soaks your life out, So in combination of pretty hard workouts and weight cuts, and this is can't last long, bro. Your body can't take it's so much beating, So I think it's all about aging, and I wouldn't say it's like, I don't think it's right to compare him to like Cain Velasquez, who was 10, 15 years younger or whatever, or about probably 10 years younger, which is big, plus the weight, the weight difference, the build. But I think if Velasquez fought prime Fedor, he would have no chances.
Really?
Yeah, 100%.
So what was the position of Fedor? Croak up?
Croak up was good too.
Once he got into the UFC, his ass was whipped multiple times.
Same thing. So, and I think this is something else, stylistic thing. If you look at all of the champions here, right, most of them were wrestlers.
Correct.
Fedor has never been a wrestler. And I think the transformation of the sport has been major as well because of the diversity of sports that come into UFC today, right? The jiu-jitsu, and then the wrestling, and then the kickboxing, and then karate. Because if you look, there's some the Wonder Boy,
Yeah.
you know, his style, you know, at some point he was really good, right? Because of his style. And then Conor McGregor has very karate stand as well when he starts fighting. So it's an evolution as well. And in order to evolve with the sport, you kind of have to evolve as well. But if you haven't wrestled as a kid, right, or as your base sports, it will be really hard for you to get that.
But he was a sambo guy. So sambo is basically wrestling plus grappling, right?
It's more of a what do you call it, judo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, sambo
throws.
yeah. You have your kimono or whatever you call it in English, but is not the same as wrestling. It's shooting in, you know, for a single leg or for a double leg, right? So I think that this is why, like, if you see it, Merab's fight just recently with
O'Malley.
O'Malley has never been a wrestler, and if he was a wrestler, first of all, he would have had a different body
composition, correct?
Yeah, which would only help him. You can become a good puncher, but you cannot become a good wrestler.
You mean in a short period of time?
In a short period of time, yeah.
Because that's basis.
Yeah. Every fight ends up on the ground, you know. If you don't knock somebody out right away, and the chances that you're gonna get into wrestling are pretty big.
You know what's interesting? So in regard to the UFC, in the last decade, a lot of people from the post-Soviet countries became champions, right? So Khabib, then we got Islam, then we have Merab right now. So Arman from Armenia, and it feels like the floodgates were open to those guys, to those countries. Khabib was, I want to say, one of the first. When they realized they can do something here in America, they know how to promote, because all the Khabib guys, they know how to promote. They don't talk trash, but when they talk, it's like their quotes become legendary, right?
Yeah.
Even Islam starts some, brother, who is this? It's legendary. And Khabib time or Send Me Location, right? It's like almost 8 years ago, and people still remember that. So in my opinion, in the next 5 years, I want to say the post-Soviet countries are going to even more dominate in the UFC.
Yeah, it's interesting too how, if you look at the history of the UFC and fighting overall, how Brazilians were dominating the sport. You know, as if every other weight category, you know, the Brazilian was a champion at some point. But then, and to be honest with you, UFC is not the same anymore, and it's becoming less interesting to watch for people like me, who was into fighting. If you look at the age when Nogueiras were fighting, you know, and Shogun, and all the pioneers of the sport, so to say, right? Like, my palms were soaking wet watching the fight.
100%.
Me and my brother would go to bars to watch the fight. Bar Louis in Chicago, you know, such a good times. Where right now is they made it as like a mainstream thing. It's not an experience anymore. There are big fights here and there. There are new guys that come and go now too fast. You know, you're kind of losing an interest and momentum, and they kind of sell their soul for the hype, like Conor McGregor did, right? When he was a humble dude, he was a lot more interesting to watch than now. Now he became something that I can't resonate with, you know.
At all.
And there are many people like that, you know, and that's.
But if you look at the stars, the celebrities of the UFC right now, Sean O'Malley, I was like, why this guy is a celebrity? He can't talk trash, he can box. That's all that he does. Well, nothing else.
It just shows you a lot about the society we live in. That's the only answer that I can get. People are not into strong individuals. People are into hype and clout, you know, and that's unfortunate. And again, maybe he's a good guy inside the gym, maybe. You know, but he just comes off cringe, weird, cocky, and I can't. It's not just who I am, so I'm not pushing for that. I watch fights for fights. I don't watch fights for hype or.
I'm happy that there are still guys like Charles Oliveira, right? Humble guy, and he was like say, 10 years ago he was a guy in the UFC, like a middle, nothing special. But now he's a superstar and he fights very good.
During the college years here, I went to school with a lot of Brazilians, and Brazilians are very similar to cultural values as we are, and it's really interesting the way they grow up, the way they train, the way they talk. They're very the way they joke. They're very similar to Slavic people.
Really?
It's interesting. Yes.
I believe that, so they are very humble. I believe that's because of the upbringing, because Brazil is a huge country, but it's pretty poor, right? They don't have much. Especially let's take a look at the same guy I just mentioned, Oliveira, right? He literally had nothing. He worked his way up. He became a champion. Right now he has a lot of stuff, Lamborghinis and etc. But he's still a humble guy. And every time he fights, I'm watching his fights.
That's another reason why I think, like, coming back to when we started the conversation with you, the humble beginnings, right, will make better humans. When you have nothing, you value things very differently. You know how to earn, how what it takes to earn something, right? And you appreciate and you value that experience, and you value things different. And I think the physical things are becoming less value, right, than what you carry inside. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but you can do the same thing even if you're rich. Let's say now you earn a decent amount of money. You live in a wonderful place in Southern California, right? But you can raise your children to value money and items. Let's say you're not gonna buy them every now and then a new iPhone every year, right? You have to read books, or you have to do this and that, and you get the prize. So it doesn't mean that if you're rich, you're gonna raise spoiled brats. It's about the mentality.
Yeah, there are instances where it works, but in most cases, if everything is given to the child and the child doesn't know how to earn stuff, because it's automatically given, right? So if
but you can't give an achievement in sports. That's why sport is so fascinating. You can buy iPhones and MacBooks, right, or even cars, luxury, but you can buy the.
Yeah, I understand. Do you think rich people want their kids to become a UFC star or a boxing champion? Not that.
Yeah, but that's extreme, because health-wise, right? It's dangerous.
Because there's no money in this too. Like, why would you take your kid go through hell, or get his head beat up, or get choked out, or break his arm, or break his leg, when he can work off of his computer and make millions of dollars, or become a doctor, or become a great lawyer, whatever, when you name it? I think the mentality that rich people carry, especially nowadays, is a little bit different from the mentality that used to be, right? I don't think my dad took me to wrestling because he wanted me to become a wrestler. Every sports educates you, right, to become a stronger individual.
Correct.
And I think this was the only reason why my dad took me, besides like knowing how to defend myself, how to defend my wife, how to defend a weaker person. But it was more to build a stronger character in me, with the will. So I think with that comes everything else. And the sports is a really good example for, not example, but the sports is a really good way of thinking about life, right? How to achieve things in life. So you can really relate to how you should carry yourself through life. The same way you carry yourself in sports. The more work you put in, the better you become. And this is like a fact. And I regret for not listening to my father fully when I was a child, because I was really perspective wrestler back in Ukraine. But then at some point when the soccer became a thing, we had Shevchenko. I was like, you know what? that I kind of feel like wrestling is not me, and that was at the peak of me just getting traction and beating everyone. I was like, yeah, I want to quit wrestling and I want to start playing soccer. I did soccer decently, but I lost 3 years of my life, and then I came back to wrestling still, and I was not the same. People that I could beat with my, with one hand, they were beating me.
3 years made a difference.
Yeah.
What age are your kids?
4 and 7.
So let's say in 3 years, your 7-year-old becomes a 10-year-old and you do videography, right? Would you hire him or her?
To do what I do?
Just to help you. And to, let's say, to give them money for that. You help with daddy to get the cameras, the lighting, the equipment, you're going to get like $20 or $50 or something. Would you consider them working for you as early as, let's say, 10 years old?
I haven't thought about it.
You got a boy and a girl, right?
Yes, there's something in this that I don't think that's right. Because when you give them money, they become, I'm afraid, and this is just my thinking, right? I'm not saying that this is right. When they do something for money, I don't want them to become crazy about the money itself, right? I would rather teach them how to do things in sport, how to achieve, how to win a competition, right? And by that, I can say, hey, like, you clean up your room today, I can take you and we can experience this, we can do this, right? So I would rather teach her in a way where she's not depending of thinking that she needs to do stuff for money. I want to teach her to do things that make her happy.
Okay, but let's say she says, Daddy, I want a new iPhone. And you say what? I'm going to buy it to you? Or you can earn this phone by helping me or mom doing this, that, or that family business.
Maybe we haven't made it to that state yet. We haven't made it to that point yet. But she sees kids because she's fairly young, right? But in our surrounding, we have kids that have phones already at 6 years old, and she asked me for the phone. She says, "Hey, Dad, why does she have a phone and I don't?" I said, "Baby, because you don't really need it. I'm with you all the time. We take you to school. We pick you up from school. We take you to gymnastics. We sit with you at the gymnastics. You come home. There's really no need for you." And we got really lucky in that regard. We got really lucky with the school. I'm not sure if you heard about it, but in America there is a thing. There's an educational system called Waldorf system. So she goes to Waldorf school where the screen time is forbidden. Like if you want to be in the school, she has no screen time. So throughout the week she sees no phone, no tablet, no TV, no computer. It's mostly they spend time outside, planting and taking care of the gardens and stuff like that. So she only gets to see a movie on Friday. They have movie nights on Friday, and they watch a legitimate full cartoon, like an hour and a half long. So we don't change the cartoons and distract them like, oh, I want to see something else. I want to see that they get to see what they get to see, But coming back to what you said, when the time comes, I'll tell her like, yeah, you have to earn it, but maybe earn not for money, maybe earn in sports. To say like, if you win a competition or if you work out harder, maybe we can talk about it, or maybe learn how to do a backflip. Because as soon as we bought an equipment that sits in the garage, she works out extra on her own. We don't even ask her. She wanted to learn how to do a pullover, and she does it in a few different ways now. So I don't know. We'll see. But there's something in me that says like she's a little bit too young for me to ask her. Her asking me for something in return for money,
Yeah, but they're gonna treat this money by buying some stuff, a Lego, a doll, a toy, something.
Yeah, maybe. I haven't thought about it fully, and maybe I'll change my mind. Maybe because my dad, we had a uncle who owned a construction company, and it wasn't for us to buy something. My dad just wanted me and my brother to feel what the physical labor feels like, what it takes to earn money. So he put us to work at summertime and I think I was think it's 8 years old or 7 years old, something like that, maybe a little bit older. He put us to work in the construction for the summer. He says, well, you see what it takes to put food on the table. So it was a good experience. It was a really good. I didn't buy anything for my money. I gave it to my brother.
Speaking of your brother, how is he? What is he doing right now? He's somewhere in the sea, swimming and
Yeah.
doing fishing?
My brother is a really interesting individual in terms of the way how he lives his life, He fully experiences life like nobody else, I'd say, right? And he's a man of many talent. He's very talented individual.
To be honest, when I saw him, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but when I saw him like moving and boxing at the same time, the weight that he carries, the muscle mass, that's truly extraordinary. Because at that time, I want to say he weighed up to 200 pounds, something like that. He's not a tall guy, right?
Yeah, sure.
So he was thick and he was white and he was moving like a lightweight. That's incredible to see, actually.
That comes from the wrestling as well, wrestling background and the boxing. That our dad teaching us how to box, because there was. It's interesting how you remember. As soon as he started getting more physically strong, my brother, right? He was trying to compete with my dad in boxing, right? And my dad says, "Okay, let's put gloves on and see what you're capable of." And so my dad whooped his ass pretty hard, but. I think that wrestling background and the boxing background kind of shaped the way we move, and how we feel the sport of fighting. But my brother is, as you probably know, he's big social media following, and he could have been a lot bigger if he had a different approach to things and mentality.
You mean kissing ass?
And being a sellout, and pleasing people and smiling on camera and cheering everyone up, He is who he is, and there's a lot of people that like it, a lot of people that don't like it, and he was pretty straight with everyone, right? He tells you what he thinks, and that kind of what made a lot of people hate him or don't like him. Because he started in men's physique, and he was doing pretty good, but then it's also political, so he's like, I'm out. Plus, he needed to sell, proteins and stuff like that, and he says, I'm completely against the proteins and all the chemicals. And so he moved on, and then he became, something else on social media, and then he got really to the point where he got burnt with the social media. And how it makes you invest into it all of your time, like in order to be relevant, you have to create stuff, and you have to create stupid stuff because stupid shit is what gets the views,
Correct.
And so at some point he says like, what, I think I'm done with all of social media. He says, it makes me want to puke that when people ask me to do another podcast, to do another video, or, to go live and stuff like that. Like, people should have lives, like, do something for you. And so he just quit social media and decided that he wants to go to Alaska. It's one of his favorite places. He's been there many times. And someone try working on a boat. Because he hasn't worked physically in terms of like physical labor, he worked out, but he really enjoys from working out, but physical labor is a little different when you have a boss and stuff. So he went on a boat and experienced the fishing, and then last year he went on a boat to do crabbing in the Barents Sea. It's like close to Russia. That was,
if you can, don't touch the base, it messes up with the sound.
Then he went to Barents Sea, and that was an experience so itself. He has changed within a year. He has changed completely to the way he treats people around him, the way he carries himself. He always said he as a kid he read a lot of books, a lot of classic books, and so he had always ability to write. So he's into writing now. He's writing different stories, short stories. He tries to write a script, a few scripts now for the films, and Yeah, he enjoys his life like never before. He's all good. A lot of people ask like, oh, what's happened to Artemis, or oh, he's on drugs or this and that. No, he's at the best place he could ever been.
So as of right now, June 2025, where is he now? In Alaska?
No, he's here. He's
Oh, he's in LA?
Yeah, he lives in he's in Palm Springs. He comes visits the family. Plays with my kids, and
I get you.
he's all good, bro.
He's, I want to say, 40?
Yeah.
So you've met your wife when you were 16.
Yeah.
So would you say your life would have been taken a way different route if you wouldn't have met your wife when you were that young? Because once you come here, it's like the dating is a little bit more different than in your country, and I must say in my country, especially like 20 years ago. Because I've met my wife in 2009.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And again, I think it's if it wasn't for her, I would be a different man. Because she makes me a better. I mean, it's the whole thing about relationship. I think like when you date somebody or when you live with somebody, the whole idea is to become the best version of yourself for the person next to you, right? So she put a lot of work and effort in me being patient and teaching me things, and the same goes to her.
I mean, if you wouldn't have met her back then, do you think you would still be single like your brother?
Yeah, I can probably answer to that question because I was too young when I met her, but as a kid I was always like falling in love a lot, and I know people up here. I'm just gonna answer your question probably. I can't speak on my behalf about myself. I don't know what would happen. Maybe I would meet somebody, maybe not, but what I can tell you that definitely is that I see people struggling in America finding a couple.
Mm-hmm. Big time.
And I know people from post-Soviet Union, Soviet Union countries that go back home to find a girl and then bring it here, just because of the values. As I said, here it's like, oh, I'm all independent. You have your life, I have my life. You have your bank account, I have my bank account. I do this, you do this. I'm independent, so there shouldn't be an independency in the relationship. It's not gonna work. She has to have her own space. You have to have your own space, and you have to respect it. But there's a boundaries in it, right? And I think when you build your life as a unit, that's the only consideration that you have to have. You work together towards something. Towards raising your kids, towards the career. Because both of you have to be invested into, whether it's your career and my career. We had at times when, I was the one bringing more to the table, in the family, but at the same time, I was supporting my wife with her career, and there was a time when I went down pretty bad, and had to start a completely different career. And my wife at the time grew to the levels where she could take care of everything, within the family. And now she's helping me build, my business now, because of what she does for living. And we're able to get to the point where I'm starting to come back, or get even with her. But we kind of never count. We just work. We just try to purely help each other as much as we can, and this is what makes our relationship pretty strong. So yeah.
Well, two separate bank accounts for me is wild as well. I don't get it. It's like that's one unit, like family, right?
Yeah. Well, and like I have my business account, and then she has her business account and personal account, but like she has access to everything. Like I don't have access to her, but it's just not a thing. Like we don't count. We don't count things.
It's like you pay for the groceries, I pay for the rent.
Yeah. Well, and as I said, sometimes she pays for everything. Sometimes I pay. Like for I always the only thing that I always paid for was the apartment. The house, the rent or mortgage now. But we just distributed. It's like it came out automatically. It's sort of like there was no talk. She takes on what she can take. I take on what I can take.
How did you end up making short films and ads?
Mm-hmm. So I started. So I got my master's degree. I moved to Chicago, and I started looking for the job. My wife got a internship at the marketing agency. I started looking for the job. There was no Ubers back then. There was nothing, right? So there was only a construction, or the easiest way out was a construction, right? So I worked construction jobs a little bit here and there, all kinds. Then I worked at the body shop, and I worked restaurants. I worked.
Even with having a master's degree.
Yeah, but like, what else you do? Like, you can't be sitting and waiting for an internship.
That was what, 2012?
2010, 2011, between that time frame. And so somebody that I knew had a job from school, actually, a Ukrainian kid. He was working for a Lithuanian company, Arc Express, a transportation trucking company. And so I got a job there as a dispatcher, and then I tried to do extra and offer them, like, hey, let me run marketing for you, because I have a master's in it. And they had a different mentality and vision on their business. They just said, no, thank you. So I moved on to work as a freight broker. So the way it works in transportation, you have a client, a middleman, which is a freight broker, and a transportation company, right? So I went to learn the brokerage side, right? And I was getting better and better, getting my own clients, and then at some point I found a pretty big client, and I was told not to give it away to somebody else in the company.
Shit.
Because they covered that region. And I was like, it's cool. I see where it's going. And so I started my own trucking company. I started because I knew the trucking side. I knew now the brokerage side. So I had connections with the truckers, and I started offering people, like, hey, I'm starting my own company. Would you jump on board with me? So I had a couple people. I bought my own trucks, and I started putting my own freight into my own trucks while I was working at the brokerage. And then the time came. I was like, okay, I'm done with the brokerage. I'm gonna just run my own company. And it started growing pretty fast, from 3, 4 to 15 trucks. And I was making really, really, really good money. And then but the industry goes up and down, up and down. So at some point, closer to 2015, everything started going down a little bit. And so with that comes a lot of, with that comes the price that you have to pay. We decided to get married with my wife during that time. And we couldn't travel because of the legal stuff. We were still getting our green cards back then, right? So we couldn't travel abroad for the wedding. So we tried to look for like a tropical place in America so we can have our wedding there. So we found La Jolla, and that's in San Diego. We rented a huge mansion there for the wedding. We brought close to 30 people from Ukraine, both families, on both family sides, and friends. So we had our wedding, and we hired this videographer that did a wedding for my wife's friend. And I don't know, over a few drinks, we started talking, and I was like, Brandon, do you want to open a production company? I can do the selling, and, maybe developing concepts, because I always had it in me. I was always the best creating presentations and, coming up with ideas for projects in school. And so somehow it says, yeah, let's do it. So I invested close to $100,000 into equipment, bought the latest cameras, latest everything, and look for projects. I would find a project, but Brendan would say, hey, I can't really do it. I can't do it. Oh, I don't feel well, or this or that or that. So I had to take the equipment and learn how to do it on my own. So I started filming my wife. I started filming my brother. And then I would get small music videos for like $500, $600 music videos, and that's how I would train myself. And 2018, our landlord was selling a place in Chicago, and he says, guys, you need to, find a new spot or buy it for me. And after our wedding, my wife says, I wish we could live in La Jolla here one day. And when we heard the news from the landlord, we said, hey, I told my wife, maybe it's the sign for us to, get out of here. And she was 3 months pregnant. So we packed all the equipment. We packed some of the stuff into U-Haul, and we went across the country to La Jolla. We got an apartment there. The trucking business was going. I still had owner operators. I didn't have my own trucks. I returned everything to the banks because I could not afford it anymore. So at that time, we started building, a production company as more of a hobby, but it would still bring me a little bit of money, right? But more of a hobby. But then I was like, how do I get in here? How do I get into the industry? Because it's the most competitive probably place to be in, the California, in terms of video production. And so I bought a pursuit vehicle. It's we call it. It used to be called a Russian arm. Now it's called Ukraine. It's like a crane that sits on a roof of the vehicle, right?
To film the moving vehicles?
Yes. Because not everyone had it. The only like the top people had it, right? In Los Angeles, and there's this new company, Motor Crane, that offered more affordable version of it, right? And so it's like, maybe if I buy that, I'll get hired in the bigger projects, and I'll be one of those top guys that will allow me to break into the make connections with them, networking with people, right? So, and it did. So I started doing like work for Hyundai and I got to know people in the industry because of the equipment that I had. And then my wife told me, like, listen, I'm financially, like, we're good now. You can quit trucking completely. So I sold the papers, for the company, because I've had it for more than 7-8 years, and it had pretty good record and everything. So I sold the papers. I paid off my debt with whatever I made off of the sale, and we started growing this production company. My wife does digital marketing, so she builds websites, she does optimization, she does paid ads. She owns a lead gen website now. So she has put so much work into my presence online, to where we became one of the top companies in San Diego now. And so I get, this is more of like a living side, but then with all of the experience that I've had throughout, I discovered in me that this is something that I really like to do, and telling stories and making people feel something is kind of what brings me joy. It's not always it comes with the price too, here, because everything costs a lot of money. If you want to do a quality work, that there's a lot of money that goes into this. So every short film was around $10,000 to $15,000 to make, because you bring people with you, you bring gear with you, you need locations and everything. So I developed a pretty strong connection within that time to visual storytelling. And I try to make it now to where I can earn living with it, right? By working with big brands and smaller companies and help people overall, tell stories or make little videos or whatever it could be. The goal is to direct bigger movies, feature films, but I guess as my life always, life always gives me an opportunities when I'm ready for it. So I think I'm getting to the point where I think bigger opportunities will present itself to me.
So I've seen your behind the scenes of your latest movie that you've published on YouTube, and you were shooting with the Ari. You still shooting with Ari?
Yeah, it used to be the thing where you chase for a camera. Right now, it became less of a thing for me. It's really a tool. Because I own some of the gear, right? I used to own the Ari cameras, and I couldn't justify owning a $70,000 camera, because that's what, like, I paid close to $80,000 for that camera.
That's with the lens or just the body?
Just the body.
$80,000?
Yeah. So there comes a point in your life where equipment
doesn't matter
anymore. It's just the skills, and I think I got to the point where I have a skill and I have people around me that have the same vision as I am. So I don't really like. I sold it, and I bought a camera that's twice cheaper, and I bought something else that's cheaper for corporate jobs and stuff. So
So I want to say that was 2022, 2023. This movie came out, The Creator, right? And everybody was talking about it because that was shot for IMAX with the FX3. It's like
Yeah.
$3,000, $4,000 camera.
Not everything, yeah, but not everything. The parts of the movie were shot on that camera, but parts of the movie were shot on Sony Venice, and they just try to sell it. I feel like the camera manufacturers have input into marketing as well. You know how many cameras were sold. I mean, it's a powerhouse of a camera for the price. I have it too, but I think it was more of like a marketing probably. It just got too much noise about the camera.
Really?
I haven't seen the movie itself,
That's the movie.
but I've heard a lot about the cameras it was shot on. But at the same time, you have to understand how much goes behind the post production, how much visual effects and color grading, and so
A lot of
a
stuff.
lot of people can't really tell the difference because there's a lot of visual effects added on the top of everything.
Did you hear that the new 28 years later, you know the movie?
Yeah,
It
yeah,
was shot on iPhone?
iPhones, yeah.
That's crazy. But I feel that the grain that is going to be present on the movie is like made on purpose. Because there is no way you're gonna shoot a movie like that with just an iPhone.
Yeah, I think there's also
Marketing?
yeah. But you can, I mean, you can make a cute video on your own, with an iPhone. But if you want to make something more complicated, you need to light. A lot of people don't understand that it's not about the camera these days. It's about knowing the lighting techniques and the composition and the movement. So if you want to make something look good, you can make it look good on an iPhone, but you need to create an environment. You need to build an environment around it, right? So you need the whole crew, you need the lighting, and there's so much more that goes behind, than just having an iPhone. But guess how many iPhones will get sold?
Because of that movie, I wouldn't say that a lot. Because a lot of people that still like to shoot or just take pictures, they use the professional cameras because you will never get the depth of field, like the graininess, the depth, the quality of.
They're not shooting on lenses that are the iPhone
Yeah,
lenses.
correct.
You have an attachment
yeah.
before that, so that's what creates the
The beauty.
Yeah, because where the lenses is technical, it's the bigger aperture you have, the bigger the bigger depths of field is. So, and I'm pretty sure there'll be a lot of visual effects and that are added to this. So, it's not about the tools; it's about the story at the end of the day. You know what I mean? So it can be shot with an iPhone, but if the story is good,
So speaking of stories, name me 5 good movies that you watched in the last, let's say, 5 years.
Everyone in my environment knows surrounding, say not environment, but everyone in my surroundings know that I'm a big fan of Christopher Nolan.
Okay, so this one.
You mean the directors?
No, the movie. So one movie, Oppenheimer.
Yeah, the Oppenheimer, but all of his movies are a work of art.
Correct.
All of his movies are work of art. So, besides that, there's a lot of great movies, bro. Like, don't take me wrong, but what stood out, and I try to watch. I can't say that I watch a lot of movies, right? But from the recent ones, there was a film called Sing Sing. It's about the correctional facility that was nominated for the Oscars at some categories last year. That was great. Then Martin Scorsese's the last film was great with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Killers of the Flower Moon.
Yeah, Killers of the Flower Moon.
You know what I'm trying to say is that in the last decade, Hollywood went so bananas that you watch max 1 to 2 to 3 movies a year that are great. Let's say 20 years ago, you couldn't wait for the summer because there were a lot of great movies. Now it's almost impossible to find a good movie to watch on a Friday night.
Yeah, well, it's just,
Would you agree?
Yeah, 100%.
Why is that?
Not only because there's in my opinion, there are a few reasons for that. So one is because how much we consume. Back then when we were kids, there was no time to consume as much as we consume now in terms of the information that we receive digitally, right?
Correct.
So we could wait for 8 p.m. to watch a good night cartoon,
program.
Yeah. And then we would wait on the weekends. That's when you see the movie. Like, the big channels would play something American, like Hercules or something, right? Or Terminator.
For the 100th time.
Yeah, or Bloodsport, So, and I think this is one of the reasons, because with the access to everything now, social media and content became a part of our identities. And so how do you, the more people spend before the screen, the more commercials you can play, right? And so I think the goal has changed overall for the movies. It's more about keeping people before the screen more. With that comes the quality, because you can make every movie great, right? That's why I think the shows became such a big part of the industry, And there's some great shows. I can't deny it, And the last one that I watched was a House of Cards.
Yeah, but it was like 10 years ago.
I just watched it. Yeah, I just watched it.
Did you watch the whole 6 seasons?
Straight. Yes.
But the first 4, I want to say, are pretty good.
Yeah, it's
the
because
5th and 6th is like...
it started getting to a point, because I think the situation with Patrick Swayze, because he had issues with Hollywood and then says legal stuff.
Not the Patrick Swayze,
or whatever.
Kevin Spacey.
Kevin Spacey, yeah, sorry. So I'm not really sure what the story behind that was. I enjoyed the film. I enjoyed his acting. That's all I can say to that. But coming back to why we don't see good movies, I think because one of the reasons, because the human thinking, human identity has changed, because people, it's like, why do people eat McDonald's?
I don't know. It's the scrap.
So the same thing.
It's fast.
Same thing goes into movies. Yeah, I feel like people can't tell what's quality, what's not. People can't tell, what the story is good or not. But, I mean, I'm not talking about everyone, right? But the majority, they just need something to play, on the background, on the background. And I think a lot of people can't tell what's good and what's bad. It's like you should be able to tell what's good for your brain, right? It's like same comes to sport. Like when we were talking about Jake Paul, why would you watch Jake Paul fight? Like he's not a fighter. Why don't you just maybe pull up a record from Lomachenko amateurs fights? Like why don't you watch Muhammad Ali's fights? I'm pretty sure all of the people that watch Jake Paul now,
they have no idea.
They have no idea about Muhammad Ali's fights or Mike Tyson's fights.
Yeah, but he draws a lot of people to the sport. That's great.
He doesn't draw people to the sport. He draws people to the drama that comes with pre-fight, and then post-fight.
You think so?
Yeah, 100%. So I'll give you an example with Floyd Mayweather, right? A lot of people watch the fights because they didn't want to experience the fight. They wanted to see Floyd lose.
Correct.
So same goes with this guy. I feel like a lot of people watch him. They either want him to see lose, B, they're just the fanboys of Jake Paul or his brother. So yeah. With the movies, it's unfortunate, but ain't nothing you can do.
But do you feel like there is a renaissance right now with the studios, for instance, like A24, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they produce up to 10 movies a year, I want to say. Mm-hmm. And I want to say 50% of them are pretty good. It's like something that is outstanding in regards to all the Hollywood movies that we see every year.
Yeah, and you have to look back into the story of A24, the way they started and the way they positioned themselves. It's more of an indie movies, right?
Yes.
Independent films. And I think that's what sells, because they don't have an agenda. They have just a story. Because a lot of films in Hollywood, you'll see there's always it's either politicized or whatever. Or I'm not there's also a big part in the industry that's like a sci-fi or comics, right?
Yeah.
I haven't seen, like, when I talk to people and I tell them that I haven't seen a Star Wars movie, not even one.
Never. Not even a single movie.
And I'm not saying this is trash or whatever, right? But it's just not me. It's just not me. Like, not who I am. It's not who I am.
Correct.
But it became a big big part of the American culture. You know, they celebrate it big time, and it comes down to a lot of other, you know, bigger, what do you call them? It has a name. It has a name. It has a name for it, but
I believe we didn't watch the Star Wars because the movies were in 70s to 80s, and those movies were not that popular in the Soviet Union, right? We didn't have the tapes of those movies. We did watch The Terminator. We did watch The Alien, right? Alien was amazing, and it's still an amazing movie, though it was produced like 40 years ago.
Yeah.
So the A24.
The A24. I think there was like a lot. What they do a lot of horror films besides everything else, and I think there's a big market for horror films in America. I'm not a big fan again, but nothing against it. But they do a lot of a lot of good drama, and I think those are the movies that people want to see, and this is exactly why they became so successful, right? Not every movie that I've seen from A24 is great, but majority of them are pretty good. And I think the strategy that they chose to invest into the movies, you know, there are some movies that are like lower budget movies, but they brought so much money in. So I think it's just really in the management and how and their strategy. That's what makes a big difference from, you know, bigger studios.
It's like the Angel Studios, right? They had this movie 2 years ago, Sound of Freedom. It like grossed more than $200 million across.
Yeah. But it's also like the whole campaign with it, you know, because it was shot way long ago, you know. It was
shot with 20th Century Fox. I want to say they didn't want to go into the cinemas. They sold the movie.
Yeah. And now they've missed it, I guess.
So in regards to movies, so I'm a big fan of Christopher Nolan as well, right? So I watch every his movie. Especially I liked the older movies. I didn't like that much of a Tenet. I didn't find it fascinating at all. But I like that he still shoots with film. It's not digital. And I see that every time he makes a movie, it takes him like 3 years. But I know that it's going to be like something like an event, right? Christopher Nolan has
like
a movie,
an experience,
like an experience, just like Tarantino, right? He gets a movie like once in 5 years, maybe in 7 years. So you're waiting for that movie. It's not a thing with let's say Spielberg, right? He gets a few movies a year, and although he's a great director, but not all his movies, I want to say 80% of his movies are not that great because he just produces them too much or too often. The same goes with Cameron, right? He used to go, let's say 3, 4, 5 years, one movie in 3 to 5 years. Then from Titanic to Avatar, 12 years. And now it took him from 2009 to 2022, 13 years to produce the second part. And it's like when I watched the second Avatar, I was like, nothing new was shown on the screen. 12 years, bro. Nothing new.
Yeah, I think it's just how technical it is and what it takes to film each scene. And then visual effects after that. And the amount of money that they spend on it. So
it's not worth it. Would you say it's worth it? Because in 2009, the first Avatar, that was worth it. And the 3D was amazing. But now it's like blue people are just running and shooting arrows.
Yeah, but it's worth for who? For him, it's worth it. Because when you do it, you enjoy the process, right, of making it. But for you as a consumer, maybe it was not worth. But if you were the one making it, you would probably say it's worth everything to me, you know. We all have different tastes. I watched the first and the second one, and yeah, the second one is not much different from the first one. I still watched it, but again, maybe it wasn't his decision to make it in the first place. Maybe it was a studio who you know, people that put money behind him. They made so much money back. They're like, okay, we got to get us going. And as you see, there's a tendency in America for that. You know, they make a movie. If it hits hard, they'll make another one. Well, not with Christopher Nolan though, but in majority cases, or they'll make a show out of it, like a Gentleman, right? Guy Ritchie's Gentleman. The movie was fantastic, amazing. Like, why would you want to make a show out of it? But the show did great, so they're filming a second one again now. But it's going to be not much different from the first one probably, but it's the consumer demand, you know? They demand it, so
You know, it's interesting with the guy Ritchie because the guy was filming those independent, almost independent movies back in the 1990s to early 2000s, and they were great, right? But in the last 20 years, he produced like one movie, like Gentleman. That's the only movie that I can watch and say that's a great movie. All the other stuff is like, what is that?
He has some good films. It's not again, like if you're an enthusiast, you probably like, I like his style, so I watched most of his films. But for the general public, there are different appetites now, right? And the different interests now. And there's some movies that can sell. There are some movies that are marketed very differently, right? Where you see it almost everywhere, and it kind of makes you want to go and see it for yourself, like Mission Impossible, right? That shit is everywhere, but it's going to be no different from the other one, from the previous one. But the way it's marketed is everywhere, like it makes you want to go and see it. It's not with me, but I'm speaking about general public, and what's in the theaters, right? Because there's some films, like not the Troy, what was the Gladiator, right? Like a big fail. They got it out. Yeah, I didn't see it as well, but they got it out of the theaters earlier than they were supposed to because it was just not selling, and they could have put something else in the program for that, right? So I think it's how you market the film, it's the distribution of the film, right? Because that's big too. Where does your film end up? You know, if it's in Amazon or Netflix, or it just ends up on YouTube, you can rent or buy it, or it goes to HBO or whatever. He has Guy Ritchie has an interesting story too. As if you're a movie enthusiast, like you'll know everything about the person, right? You'll know his style.
He was a rich guy, right? He had rich parents.
He comes from a good family, yeah. So that's understandable. Like maybe he's not in a rush to make money or whatever. Maybe his previous films have made him so much money where he's just doing what he likes to do.
But why then would he film Aladdin for Fox? It's like for Disney.
But it was I don't remember if I've seen that one. But from what I've read and seen the snippets of it, it's pretty interestingly made. It's pretty interestingly made. Maybe I should come back and watch that one. But it's just not my genre of what I like.
Do you have an answer? What happened to Will Smith? So the guy was a role model for me, let's say 20 years ago. I was watching The Bad Boys, The I, Robot, I'm Legend, and I was like, I started working out because of the guy. He looked amazing, right? He was the hero. Then he took this 5-year hiatus, and when he came back, he was never the same.
I don't really know. Maybe he had an experience in life that kind of forced him to change a little bit. And it could be anything. It could be a family related, because from what I read, I don't think he has a good relationship with his wife. He just also look at his son. Nothing against, but it's just not.
She's weird.
Now I want to raise my kid.
Yeah.
When you become when you become a celebrity, I think it comes with the price as well. You don't really have your private life anymore. You kind of sold it to the devil.
Literally.
And then you are being told what to do. You can't have. Because if you're not doing what you're asked, right, then you're out of the game. That's just how it works with the Hollywood. So I don't know. Maybe he went through something spiritual and he changed, or maybe social media consumed him. I don't know. But I know that. So it's interesting. One of my clients is a life coach, and one of his things that he's pushing for is going through ayahuasca, and. I don't know. There's maybe something in it. I see people coming back different from that experience. It kind of opens you up. Maybe your scope of your thinking opens up a little bit, and you see life differently. So I actually have somebody that I know. Her sister and husband went through ayahuasca experience. Both of them were coaches, like tennis coaches. Both of them went through experience, and they say, you know what? F America, after a lifestyle here, we're going to Thailand, or we're going to live in Thailand now, and just we like to be in connection with ourselves and less with the connection of how to survive in America, how to survive, how to build a living here. And
But you as a man of faith, you have to see ayahuasca ritual as basically demonic.
I can't say that, For me,
It's a modern day Tower of Babel. You
but
want to reach God.
but this is it's not reaching God, it's reaching the depthness of yourself. That's how I look at it. For me, God, and that's something else. I can't say that I believe in the persona, right? There's a guy who sits above us and he says, "Oh, there's a war. There's going to be a war in Palestine, and now it's going to be a war in Ukraine. There's a bad guy. There's a good guy, right?" For me, God is love, and this is what I experience when I go to church, right? I speak with something higher than us when I'm in a church. I feel a communication with somebody, but I can't relate that it's like I'm talking to a person, right? And so I look at it, I can't say that it's a demonic, because there's a lot of things in church that are written in the Bible that I don't agree with, and you don't have to agree with everything that's written in the Bible or in the church, but the fundamentals are there for the human life. It's loving, and for me, God is love. And so when you go and try ayahuasca, you always have to think and understand that all of us come from different backgrounds, right? And everyone has a different experiences in life and something that they go through in life. And so maybe there's blockages in you, right, that block you from loving, or blocking you from being kind because of how abusive your dad was, right? Or maybe your uncle or whoever it is, So when you go through ayahuasca, and I haven't tried it, though. I haven't tried it myself, which I had a thought that I probably would want to go through this just to see what's deeper in me. And when I've seen people go through this, they come back more kind and more cautious about who they are and where they're at in the society, and who they want to be for the person next to them. So I've only seen positive stuff, right? I haven't seen.
Yeah, but have you ever heard the story? Let's say an athlete goes through ayahuasca and he becomes a better athlete. It's the vice versa, right? I don't want to work. I don't want to earn money. I don't want to strive for something. I don't want to achieve something. I want to live my minimalistic life. That's why I moved to Thailand or other countries.
Yeah, but everyone finds peace in their own peace. It's like you have an opinion, I have an opinion. Somebody thinks that maybe what makes him happy is living in Thailand on $3-4 a day and seeing a sunset and a sunrise. And that's what kind of makes him, happy. And same with us. I haven't tried it. I don't really need to go through ayahuasca because I'm happy, right? And I found happiness in me, and I found happiness in my relationship with my wife. I found happiness with my kids. There are things that I would change, but they're in my power, and I know that I can do more to become a better, become a better man. Make more money. This all comes down to money. So whatever makes them happy. There's no right or wrong, I say, in this. As long as he's not stealing anything, I'll judge the person who would steal than the person that wants to try ayahuasca.
I've heard stories when they go through ayahuasca ritual and then they leave their families, they have a divorce, they leave their kids just to have this another life.
Yeah, but that's also coming back to the choices that they've made. A lot of people live with the thinking that, hey, like, in order for me to fit in a society, I have to have a wife and I have to have children, right?
Yeah, because this is written in the Bible.
Yes,
family, you become one.
But if you don't understand. If you don't understand that it comes with responsibility, this all comes down to responsibility, right? With some people, as I said, some people come out of fortunate families with a great relationship within the family, a husband and a wife, and a relationship with the son and the father and the mother and the son or daughter, whatever it is. It comes there comes a better family. Like, you have more chances of having your own family, good family, than. So maybe they just didn't have it as a kids, and
Yeah,
Yeah.
It doesn't mean you don't have to learn to be responsible for your own life at minimum, right? And not just to cop out and say, oh, okay, I'm gonna take these drugs, or I'm gonna go from my country to another country just because I don't fit in here. You can fit in the US, you can do whatever you want. But yeah, it's hard, but you're the perfect example, right? 20 years ago, migrated from a small town in Ukraine, and now what do? You own a house and you live almost by the beach. You have two wonderful kids, a wife, and you're happy. You smile more than you get sad, right, in life.
Yeah, yeah. Even when something bad happens, I try to look at it and smile. But again, it comes with your experiences, right? What made me are my experiences made me. You know, it's living in a balcony in Chicago. You know, while working construction jobs, I never thought about my life as a struggle. And I think the victimization in America is huge. You know, people try to make victims, and it's related to pretty much anything you can think of. You know, the gender thing, and then the
Color,
family.
skin,
Yeah, the family, the financial.
orientation.
So I never thought about like, oh my God, I'm going through such a hard times now. Like I woke up and I went to work. You know, went construction. You know, and I always thought about everything as a stepping stone. You know, and even now, like I'm nowhere where I would want to be, right? And I think what I've noticed and how when I analyze like why do other people like make it a lot faster in the industry than I am, right? And I start to analyze myself and think why it happens. Well, number one, I got to do more work, but I prioritize things, right? I don't want to be working all the time. I want to be spending more time with my kids, because this is like, I think that's why we're here in the world. The whole meaning of life is family, experiencing the family and knowing how to enjoy it. Because if you don't enjoy your family, maybe you don't want to have one. So I always prioritize. So I'll put my kids first while they're still, small. And when they get a little older, I think this is where I can accelerate a little bit more within my career. I'll do a little bit more. And that's number one. And so number two is I have a feeling of a calling. When a God gives me what I deserve at a certain time. And this is what I've noticed throughout my life is like I was making bigger money, but then it all cut out, right? And I think that whole experience was because it needed to humble me down a little bit. But because I've noticed because I started making, within the first year I made $3.5 million in trucking. But what I've noticed, like I could see people less. When somebody talks to me, I'm always on my mind.
Mm-hmm.
Always thinking about what I think, right? So I would give people less attention. It could be my close friends, it could be my wife. But then all you think about is more, right? But then I think I got to experience ups and downs, and now I know what, you can't have everything right away, and the way the life shapes me now, I think it's for the good of me, for the good of my family, and for the good of people that are around me.
So I have the same question that is the last one on my podcast. It's always the same. So let's have two assumptions with you. Assumption number one is the President of the United States of America is the most powerful human being on planet Earth. Mm-hmm. Assumption number two, although you can't become one, but let's say you become the President of the US, but once you do so, you have all those three-letter agencies like CIA, FBI, like NSA, right? They come at you and say, congratulations, we love you, now we're at your disposal. We know everything in the world, right? We know all the answers. You ask us, we give you an honest answer. What would be your first question?
Repeat the question itself, the second one. I know you become a press, but repeat the question itself again.
You have all those agencies at your disposal, right? And they know all the answers in the world. They know everything. They know whether the moon landing happened, who killed the JFK. They know everything, right? You can ask them a question. What would be your first question to get an answer to? Because you know you're going to get the truth.
There are things based on our conversation, I think you probably should know the answer by now, but there are things that you shouldn't know in order to live a happy life, right? So if you ask the question, hey, is there a God, and they know the answer, I would rather not know it. I would rather live with what I believe in love and peace, than knowing that there's no God. So what's the whole idea of loving and and taking care of other people and helping other people, right? So I don't think I would ask the question. I know there are universe out there, there are other planets, and there probably could be a different civilizations, could be, right? But I choose to believe what I believe. The only influence if I became a president uh, is to probably stop the wars, stop the influence of uh, colonizing politics that have been going, for a long time. When I look what's going on in the world now, I don't think people deserve what they go through now. We look in, Palestine, and we look at Israel, and we look at Ukraine, and we look at Africa.
Oh, 100%. Those are the politicians that started all those wars, not
But
the people that live there.
but with America being the leader, the world's leader, and their hands in pretty much in every country. Same would happen, in my country. If it wasn't for America, it wouldn't probably happen. My biggest ask would be I would pull out of everything and just made good for people up here, because my kids live here now. And then, but what I could do is start helping other countries in a way where, I don't know, like there are many countries in the world where there's no clean water, still. And once you have kids, you kind of start the perspective changing in your head, right? So when I see kids dying, due to war or due to not having resources, proper medical resources or food resources, we live in the world like 1% owns the whole wealth of the world. And so being a human as a leader of the country should be a big one, and I think the leaders of some of the countries in the world have become obsessed with being the big boss kind of thing, right? So that I would ask no questions that I don't know yet, and if there is a question that I potentially would want to know, but I would probably say no. I don't want to know anything. I know all of the answers for myself now. I live them. So the answer is family and love. That's about it. And being a good human. You'll be memorable more for that, I guess. The people that you touched within your existence, than for being the president of the Ukraine right now.
What I don't like is the hypocrisy of people, let's say. So right now people are big on Ukraine and all that stuff, and I acknowledge it. I understand people are dying. I know a few families that once were living in Spain. There were a few families that came from Mariupol because their house was literally destroyed. They had nothing, right? So it's horrible because the regular people die in Ukraine, Israel, Iran right now, Palestine, all those countries, right? And they're rooting for those 2 to 3 to 4 countries only. At the same time, you can look into almost every country, basically in Africa, and you will see hunger, famine, right? No drinking water. So I've seen this video, let's say 6 to 8 months ago. Maybe that was staged, but you can stage the way that physically a child was looked. So that was I won't say that was an American or a British guy that was just filming. He came, I don't even know what the country of Africa that was, but he films a kid, let's say 7 to 10 years old, an African guy, kid, and he was basically laying on the ground and he's starving, right? Maybe that was staged, but the way that it was shown on the camera, so let's say he was like this tall, and he weighed in maybe like 50 pounds, right? Maybe 40 pounds. So he's exhausted. And when you have in 2025 this shit, I just can't acknowledge how can you not care for those countries, for those people, because it's not having them having iPhone or not. It's just having them having or not drinking water or just regular, basically food. Because as I understand Africa, it's an amazing place. It's almost the biggest continent in the world, and it can produce a lot of food, fruits, vegetables, all that stuff, right? But they starve. So I would love to know why and how can we literally help those people? Because these are kids.
Yeah, I mean, everything could have been changed, but the amount of money they spend on wars, it could have changed the world completely. But it's coming back to what we originally talked with you about, the quality of people. What's now happening is they're raising a society of consumers that consume nonstop.
Everything, from content to food.
From content to physical stuff to food to everything. So, I think it's irreversible, and I think there'll be a point in life where a planet Earth will shake it off, right, and reset itself to the new beginning, because we're cancer on this planet.
Did you watch the movie, Darren Aronofsky's movie Mother?
I maybe a while ago, I think
Do
so.
you remember the beginning and the ending?
No.
So the beginning was something new starts, and we see that the creed is a man and a woman comes into the house. So right from the movie, we know that the man is God, woman is Mother Nature, the house is our planet Earth. And the movie ends when they torture the kid, which is Jesus, etc. And the movie ends, it restarts. And right how the movie started, it ends the same way. So it's just like a new cycle. So this is what basically you're saying. Maybe we're about to witness a new cycle.
I hope not now. I at least want my kids to grow and experience the happiness of life.
But bro, if you believe in Jesus Christ, if you believe in God, you know that they're gonna be fine with in the New Jerusalem, in the heavens. So
New Jerusalem, is that?
yeah, it's called the New Jerusalem. The God will create a new Jerusalem.
They had in Wikipedia, they deleted it, but what they had when the war just started in Ukraine, and you Google Kiev and you go to Wikipedia, it says another name, New Jerusalem.
No way.
I swear to God, I checked.
Yeah, but that was some kind of an editor did that, maybe for a joke.
Maybe not.
Well, it's definitely not heaven right now.
Huh?
Kiev is not definitely a heaven right now.
You see all. So in Ukraine, a lot of people are concerned about how they take down the monuments and stuff like that, right? And then in a lot of cities, we see the what do you call the candle thing? Keep forgetting
the seven candles, the Jewish symbol.
Yeah, big ones all around Ukraine now, in the big cities. So we will not know the truth, and I feel bad about it, and that's why when I see young men dying for no reason, absolutely no reason, I was like, bro, like, you're still young. You have so much in front of you, the whole life, the experiences that life brings, love and, and kids and traveling. It's very unfortunate what's going on in Ukraine.
So I've seen a video a year ago, maybe that triggered me big time, right? So there was a video shot vertically, and it showed how very pretty women are dancing in Kiev on the rooftop.
Yeah, it's still.
So in the same time, your same male are dying and you're partying, right? Yeah. I know that you can help them, right? But even if you party, can you not film it? Can you not brag about it? Because literally your men are dying and you're dancing on the rooftop. It's like nothing has happened because you live in this city and you have some kind of a privilege. That's horrible.
With the whole thing, what's going on, it's very unfortunate that what's happening now. I just lost my. There was a really interesting thing that I wanted to tell you. So people scream, "Oh, Ukraine's this." I'm a Ukrainian. I was born in Ukraine. I love my country. I love my people, but everything is changing, and I don't know why. When people scream, "We are Ukrainians, our country, independence, and this and that," but then. What is country? What is country for you?
People only, community.
Yeah, I understand. But you guys lost generations ahead. From what I've read, there's like over 1 million people that have died, and just Ukrainians. Mm-hmm. So those are the generations and generations and generations.
And the traumas.
They don't understand how big of a fact this is for the Ukrainian people, for the Ukrainian nation, how big of a loss it is. It would have been just fine saying, okay, like, take those territories, they don't want to be with us, but let's stop the killing. It would just actually be good for Ukraine to stop it in the long run than keep fighting. And now what's going on now is just...
And basically 1 million male that can reproduce somebody's husband. So a lot more females are right now in Ukraine.
Oh, yeah. Going to Turkey and marrying Europeans and stuff, Germans and French.
It will be interesting to see what Ukraine becomes in 20 years. I believe we're not going to recognize the country at all.
We may not see the country in 20 years.
Yeah, I've heard that maybe Poland is thinking of taking some territories from the east, from the west of Ukraine, east from Poland. Maybe so Russians are taking over some territory, right? They took the Crimea. I've been to Crimea 3 times in my childhood. It's in them. You've never been to it? I want to say it's like
It's California.
Yes, because it has mountains, it has the sea. The sea is amazing, right? You don't have the sand, but you have the stones. And you can like see, let's say, 20 meters. You can see the ground. It's so clear. It's an amazing place. I've been 3 times in that place. Now it's a part of Russia, right? So if let's say Ukrainians or Russians pump a lot of money to Ukraine, it can become the top spot for tourism.
Yeah, but we'll see. We're in America.
Correct. I still believe that this is the best country in the world. I've lived in a few countries. I've seen Europe. I don't like Europe. I don't like their country. I don't like the idea of Europe because that's a very old culture. I like going everywhere with my car, having a parking spot for me, getting everything now if I want it, right? When we lived in Spain, for instance, they go to siesta, so they don't work for a few hours every day. So it's like, it boggled my mind. It triggered me a lot. So I believe America is the best place on earth, especially California. Nature-wise, I mean, it's the most beautiful place on earth. Maybe Hawaii can.
Yeah, I don't. It's a subject that, like, if you put politics away, right, and the history, the history of wars and everything, I'd say, for living, it's one of the best places in the world to be in.
You can have everything here.
Yeah, you have an ocean from one side, and you an hour away from skiing. You can go ski and surfboard the same day.
Correct. It's mind-boggling, and you can become whatever you want.
Yes, that's another thing. You can become whatever you want. It's becoming a little harder to become whatever you want, but you can.
But that's why you value it so much. That's how we talked about behind the scenes. Once you get into here legally, you get your visas and green cards. It's like, that's an achievement because it's hard to get here.
Yeah.
And then when it was
10 years.
10 years.
Yeah.
So, and when people get in here illegally and then now they're protesting, they're burning the American flag, it's like, you just don't understand how hard it is to get here. Even to get a visa, working visa, you have to achieve in your own country something to get a visa to come here and be here legally.
But do you really think that those people that burn flags that are, I think there's...
No. Agitators, paid actors.
What was happening in our country when we had our revolutions and stuff? They've used exactly the same scenario if they were trying to use here. Exactly. And this is if you start researching on this, there's like a name for this transitioning and bringing people together. There's like it's the whole experiment that have been done in the past to see how you can bring the group of people together, and those people will. It's like a snow. What do you call it?
A snowball.
Yeah, like a snowball. When you roll it, it's just bigger and bigger and bigger. So use the same strategy here. Just you need. I think like if you're if you're a president or a governor, you need to clean it right away. And the big problem of the Ukraine that we had with our president back in the day, that he let it roll. And
2014.
And then he ran away. Yeah, if he would clean this with an army, this would never happen again.
Yeah, but that would be violent. People would have died.
Yeah, but there are people that stand behind it. People have died either way, and look what's happening now. Like, would it scale-wise, would it be better to cut that fire right away? Put that fire away right away, or look where we now.
So you have no idea how many people support Ukraine from my own country, from Lithuania, and they cheer for basically for war.
Yeah.
do it. They raise money, and people are saying like, okay, so in the first year, let's say 100,000 Ukrainians died. A lot? Yes, a lot. 200, 3, 500,000. Now people are literally saying, I've met a few Ukrainians that live here in my apartment complex. They say, million people literally died in Ukraine. So when enough is enough? 2 million? You've got what, 40 million population?
Probably less than that now, yeah.
7 to 8 fled or just left.
Yeah.
1 million died, killed. So another that are not going to die, PTSD that are going to experience, the way it's going to influence their families, the way they are going to end their lives because they're going to hang themselves or shoot in their head, because this is what you do when you're a veteran, right? I want to say the statistics is 25 to 30 veterans here in America commit suicide every day because the Iraq war, Afghan war, and all other wars. So it's going to leave this mark on the country. It's irreversible. It's impossible to get back to where you were even 20 years ago. No, they cheer for war, more. Maybe you should give up territory. No, we will get back your territory. You will get back to owning Crimea. There's no way. You're not getting back Crimea. You're not getting back Donetsk and all that. No way.
Nothing. And nobody can help. And people, and this is again, like you said, it's an experiment, that was conducted in Ukraine, and as well as Europe, because all of the media is controlled by the globalists. And if you push one agenda everywhere, people start believing it. It's just the nature of a human being, and there's nothing you can do with it. You have to be sane, and in your mind, like overall, if you think about happy people, would happy people ever say, "Yeah, let the war go"?
Never.
So I think it takes a special individual to say, yes, we need to fight. Yes, we need more people to die. Yes, like what they said in America here, that this is the best investment that we've made, that Russians are dying and our troops are not on the ground. It's like, what normal human being would ever say so, Like and as a saying, like if you're a happy person, happy with yourself, happy with your life, you'll never support this. So
what's interesting, so when those people brag on social media saying we need war, let's send troops to Ukraine, help Ukraine, etc., would you send your own kid? Would you send your own son? Would you go? No, you don't understand. I contribute with money. I'm gonna help with marketing. I'm gonna help. No, bro. You go on the front line. You take the gun and you fight. You're gonna shit your pants in 5 minutes and you're gonna go back. Maybe you're gonna be so happy that you're gonna end up alive. But there is a big chance you're gonna end up just on the field, in the trenches. That's it.
The main thing is what my wife taught me. Is kill them with kindness. So I try not to engage with anyone into political discussions. The majority of people that I know have a different point of view that I am. So I love them and I wish them the best. And there's nothing else that I can say to that, And I wish that to everyone all around the world. I think if people should start realizing that it matters being kind to each other. I think the world will become a better place if we're going to be kind to each other.
100%.
Regardless of who you are and where you come from,
God bless you. God bless your kids. God bless your family. God bless your marriage. And
thank you, brother. Thank you.
It's good. It was
Thanks
good to have you.
Yeah, thank you.